The state of the Democratic Party was next on our agenda. With the party facing challenges in the Upper Peninsula, we explored how Dr. El-Sayed plans to engage a key demographic who feels that they may have been disconnected from the party. The party struggled to engage young white men in the last election, and Dr. El-Sayed stated that he believes redefining manhood is a societal problem and that the solution requires a long-term approach.
I think the party has a challenge with young men, period. Whether they're young white men, young brown men, young black men, you're seeing it across the board, and the demographics demonstrated just a complete exodus of young men from the party. And I think it's in part because we've struggled to have a coherent conversation about masculinity, right? And every time you hear the word masculinity spoken out of some mouths, there's always an adjective that comes before it that people don't want to hear about themselves. Now look, I was one of those kids who was labeled a bad kid when I was a kid, right? I remember teachers saying, oh, well, he can't keep quiet, he always blurts out, he's always getting in this trouble or that trouble. And I remember what the experience of being written off was like, right? And I worry that the Democrats and their allies are just writing off a whole group of people, and I've been a victim of that in my life, and I don't think we should be doing that. And I think the thing that we need to be able to do is to be able to find an alternative to the stuff that you hear from the Jordan Petersons and the Andrew Tates of the world, that the reason that men are struggling is because women are succeeding. I say this as a father of two daughters. I don't ever want my daughter's success to be written off by somebody as the reason they're failing. I think all of us can have nice things and all of us can thrive together. I also think, though, we need to have an honest conversation about the way that our corporatized politics is preying on young men. Be honest about it, right? I got a good friend of mine, he struggles with problem gambling. He can't watch sports anymore. Like that, our whole basis of our whole relationship was watching sports together. He just can't watch anymore because he's lost his 401k. He's put his family's income at risk, and he's like, I can't watch it because it's always in front of me. You got to ask yourself, like, why is it when we know that that industry literally exploits people with problem gambling that we just allow them to put that in people's faces, knowing that they're making a ton of their money on people who cannot control themselves? Similarly, if you go on social media at all and you're a young man, you're being pornified in some way or another, right? And that's not to say that I think it should be illegal or we should go after it. No, I'm just saying that, like, if you're a 13 or 14-year-old boy, right, you're being fed stuff that is actually illegal for you to consume and illegal for them to put in your face, right? But you're seeing it over and over and over again, right? So I think we need to have a conversation about the ways that men's dopamine circuits are being exploited in ways that are sapping them of the ability to, like, show up in the way that they want to show up in their lives. Part of that is a conversation with young men. Yo, get up, get out of bed, right? Stop looking at that stuff. You need to go to the gym, you need to go to class, you need to go to work. Great. But part of that is also saying, hey, there is a broader system here that is taking advantage of you. And we got to step up as a society and take that on. And the final point I'll say is, like, I come at this honestly. I played sports my whole life growing up, right? You still find me in the gym when I'm not out here talking to folks like you. And I do think that I understand what it's like to be a young man, and I understand the ways that, sometimes when the conversation is going a certain way, you're going to turn to the people who at least feel like they accept you. But let's be clear, right? A lot of these folks peddling this version of masculinity, they're not talking to you, right? They're trying to talk for you. They're trying to talk about you, and they're trying to weaponize you politically. And I think we've got to show up and be agents in our lives again. And that means a vision of masculinity that's not about punching down, right, or hurting people that are weaker than you. It's about protecting, it's about empowering, it's about promoting. And that's the kind of masculinity I grew up with. And I think we need to come back to that conversation. So we're having those conversations openly on our campaign. And I do think that folks want an alternative to the kind of hate that's being pushed right now. It doesn't feel good to hate people, right? Nobody wants that.
And so it's kind of like we're looking at maybe the broader problem of what is causing the democratic disengagement of young men, right? So you're saying if we address that, it seems like a very long-term goal, the short-term goal to engage Democratic voters?
Well, look, I mean, I think as they say, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. I think there's been a lot of damage done, and I think you need to be able to re-engage it. But I also know that in this campaign, we want to start that conversation, and I think people know whether or not you like them. They do, you know what I mean? And I didn't get into this because I'm enamored by moving to DC. God, no. I'd like to be with my family. I didn't get into this because I wanted a title. The only title I ever wanted was doctor, and I've been able to serve that out, thankfully. I got into it because I think there are a lot of people in a lot of pain. And I want to be able to engage folks because I like them. I want them to feel healthy and empowered in their lives. And when you've got a group of people who feel disempowered, whether they're young women or they're young men or they're seniors or they're folks who feel like they're being taken advantage of at work, that you have to have a conversation with them that shows that you actually have their interests at heart. And I think this is a step in that direction with young men. Now, look, I don't know where folks are going to go in this race, but I want them to know that as we reach out, we're doing so because we truly and deeply want to be able to reflect the needs that they have in their lives and the kind of opportunities that they want and the kind of public policy that our government offers. They look at Trump, right? That's a guy who's weaponized the worst type of masculinity against them, right? You look at these Medicaid cuts, you know who he wants to go after? Young men. Work requirements are entirely about who? Young men, right? So if you think that's serving you, okay, go ahead. But I don't think that's serving you. I think that's playing you. And I think most of us understand when we're getting played.